Discover the incredible rise and unexpected fall of White Motor Company. A heartwarming journey through love, loss, and legacy. Steve Thompson wiped the sweat from his brow, the scent of oil and metal filling his lungs as he stood in the dim light of Thompson's garage. It was a small place, cluttered with tools and memories, but it was his. The weight of his father's struggling legacy pressed against him, a specter of the once thriving White Motor Company dealership that had crafted American dreams. As he held a family photo in one hand and a wrench in the other, he felt the pull of nostalgia clash with the harsh reality of declining business. He closed his eyes, imagining the vibrant engine roars of the past as townsfolk gathered, laughing and revving their cars, a close-knit community of craftsmen and dreamers. The townspeople of Maplewood hadn't given up yet. They rallied around Steve, planning car shows and reunions to celebrate the proud history of White Motor. Just last week, he had seen old men lean against their muscle cars, swapping stories about their glory days, pointing, laughing, their voices thick with memories. And each rev of the engines seemed to send waves of pride through the streets. Families gathered, children racing between cobbled lanes, and Steve rounded a corner with hope. Maplewood was alive, but beneath that surface vibrancy lay unsettling truths. Whispers of rival companies discussing how to capitalize on the nostalgia echoed among the town's coffee drinkers. Instead of unity, the talk turned bitter, dividing friends and families. We need to move forward, some insisted, chasing after modernity and profits. Meanwhile, the old-timers clung to the values that solidified this community, the very heart of Maplewood. Steve felt pulled between two worlds, a daunting crossroads pressing down on his spirit as Father's Day approached. The air was thick with anticipation for the car show, a celebration meant to honor the past and the love for their cherished automobiles. On that day, as engines revved and laughter peppered the air, pride surged in every heart. Yet a seed of doubt nestled deep within Steve's own, and he couldn't shake it. What if I fail my father? He wondered, glancing at the faces of neighbors who had built and shaped this town together. Then came the offer from a corporate giant. The promise of financial stability shimmered like a mirage, but with it hung dark strings that threatened the very soul of his father's legacy. Steve watched his community grapple with the decision. Friends became opponents. Old alliances strained. What used to be barbecue banter morphed into fierce town hall debates, divided by the allure of financial security or the yearning for tradition. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the meeting heated up, old memories cascaded like falling stars. The crowd halted, breaths caught in the air. It's about more than just cars. An elder shouted, "It's our heritage." And in that moment of silence, Steve's heart thundered. He felt the eyes of the community upon him, waiting, holding their collective breath as annual reunions flashed before him, a legacy hanging in the balance. He glanced around, searching for answers. An old family friend, with whispers of truth about the fallen empire of White Motor, stepped forward. The weight of generations cascaded around Steve, shadows of doubt lining his thoughts. What mattered more, honoring the memory of his father or embracing the future? The air crackled with urgency. The decision loomed, and the heartbeat of Maplewood pulsed louder than ever. What would he choose? Steve felt the heat of a dozen eyes locked onto him, each gaze a question, a plea. He stood there, rooted in place, as the murmurs swirled around him like autumn leaves caught in a gust. What was at stake? No longer just a car show, not merely about cars, but the very soul of Maplewood. The echoes of his father's laughter haunted him. He imagined his old man's voice poking fun, full of life, filling the garage with warmth and possibility. As the tension thickened, a voice rose above the rest. "Steve, this is your father's dream. Don't let it fade away." It was Clara, a close friend from childhood, memories of Saturday afternoons and bike rides flooding his mind. She had taken his side through thick and thin. He could sense her belief in him, her faith, but it felt heavy and burdensome now. He swallowed hard, pushing aside anxiety. "I know what you all want," he began, his voice steady but soft. "I grew up listening to the stories, the victories and the struggles. This place speaks to our roots." A quick glance at the crowd brought a flicker of hope. Faces softened, hopeful yet expectant. "And I want to honor my father. But—" He paused, feeling the weight of expectation loitering over him. A knot formed in his stomach. "But I have to think of the future too. Can we build something new while holding on to our past?" The reply was instantaneous, a riot of clamor. Some cheered, while others countered harshly. "You're betraying us. You'd sell us out." The voices bounced off the walls, anger woven into friendships. Yet born from fear of losing what they cherished, Steve's heart raced. He had never been a decision-maker, never craved being the center of attention. Yet here he was, straddling memories of a golden past and an uncertain future. Taking a deep breath, he shouted, "We can collaborate. What if we invite that corporation to host workshops, to merge new technologies with our craftsmanship? We could reach higher, build bridges." A ripple of silence passed over the crowd, then curious whisperings took flight. Hope danced in his chest, fanning those still embittered flames. Maybe there was a way to honor his father while embracing the new. He could almost hear his father's laughter, urging him onward, giving him strength. "Remember the company motto," Steve whispered to himself. "Innovate without losing sight of who we are." But doubt clawed at him. Would they even be receptive? The battle lines drawn were painfully evident. It wasn't simply a corporate pact. It was a matter of identity, the very essence of Maplewood. As he surveyed the faces in the crowd, some still lamenting, others starting to nod thoughtfully, a flicker of resilience emerged. He stepped forward, excitement bubbling. "Let us gather into small groups. Let us form a committee to explore this together. Talk, share ideas. We owe it to our children, our community, to discover what this could mean." The room buzzed. That glimmer of shared purpose ignited. Steve felt the vigor in that gathering shift. It transformed the tension into a newfound energy. Hope, igniting faces once shadowed by despair, reflected off the walls like sunlight piercing through clouds. But just as momentum surged, an old rival interjected from the back. "What's the point, Steve? Why would they care about your heritage?" His words dripped with disdain, trigger points for doubt buried deep within. Steve braced himself. It was more than he anticipated, and he had to defend what was right. How could he silence that voice of doubt? Was there more he needed to prove? The urgency pressed in around him like the clamor of an engine revving too high, ready to explode into action. Could he pull his community together, or would it splinter into fragments? Turning back to the crowd, he saw their faces aflame with hope and confusion. He realized the fight to save Maplewood was only just beginning. What would be his next move? Steve's heart pounded as silence blanketed the crowd for a moment. Every eye was fixed on him like a camera lens, capturing his uncertainty, his determination, his fear. This was more than a fight for his father's legacy. It was about the very fabric of Maplewood. Could he possibly stitch it together, or was it doomed to unravel? Maybe it's not just about us, he ventured, his voice gaining strength as he squeezed the words out. This is about the kids. Those kids out there who love cars, who play in the dirt with dreams of being mechanics or designers. We owe this to them. Clara beamed from the crowd, her hands clapping together. Yes. Think of the future generations. Others slowly began to nod. A flicker of excitement sparked as he glanced around. But still, that voice from the back, his rival sneered. "Ah, kids don't care about history. They want flashy cars and fast money. You think they care about some rusty old dream?" Steve straightened his shoulders, refusing to cower. That taunt hit too close to home, but he couldn't allow it to derail him. They will care if we teach them, if we show them both the past and the possibilities ahead. He felt each heartbeat as a rallying cry. The energy was shifting, electric. Conversations were starting to hum like an engine, steaming back to life. People were leaning forward, interested. That was the spark he needed. Let us start a series of heritage workshops, he proposed, excitement bubbling over. We could share hands-on skills in combination with design and tech. Let us bridge these gaps. We can use our history as a launchpad. A murmur spread, sounds of agreement mingling with doubt, but he continued undeterred. Picture this. A festival celebrating our history while showcasing our innovations. A place where families create memories together, where they can see how far Maplewood has come and where we can go. He glanced at Clara, who was nodding fervently, hope reflected in her eyes. That jolt of support infused him with confidence. If we do it right, they'll be proud to be part of something bigger, he added, confronting the tension. This town thrives on pride. We need to harness that. Then, a call from another familiar face. Old Mr. Jenkins, with his bushy white eyebrows and leathered hands, hesitated before speaking. Steve, you think the company around the corner is going to help us? They only see dollar signs. Not if we don't show them the value we bring. Steve replied, raising his voice to cut through the encroaching shadows of defeat. But if we unite, if we stand as a community, they won't ignore us. Together, we can forge a vision tied to our history, but not limited by it. We're not just fighting for cars, we're fighting for our future. Thunderous applause erupted, filling the space like an orchestra tuning up, each sound a note in a melody of hope. People were jumping on board, and Steve began to see faces light up with potential, enthusiasm igniting like old gasoline. Even the rival looked momentarily taken aback, the slice of doubt slowly chipping away. But just as things seemed to clear, another cold wave washed over him. What if they still resisted? Could they really pull this off? What if his best efforts crumbled under the weight of tradition versus progress? As he stood there, the uncertainty lingered. Would the community rally together behind him? Or would fractures form before they found a common road forward? A flicker of resolve lit within him. All right, let us get to work, he shouted. Let us gather ideas tonight. Everyone's voice matters. This dream isn't mine alone. It's ours. As excitement resumed, an unexpected thought tugged at his mind. Could he trust that his father's old strategies still had a place in this new world? What if they needed more than just an open heart to bridge the gap? With a renewed sense of purpose, Steve stepped forward. Meet me at the garage tomorrow. Let us build this together piece by piece. And we'll toast to history and dreams. As the crowd began dispersing, he felt the pull of the past and the weight of anticipation for tomorrow blend, setting the stage for an uncertain but hopeful future. However, as Steve turned to leave, a chill ran up his spine. Would tomorrow's enthusiasm translate into action, or would it dissolve like the fog after dawn? That was the nagging question that lingered. The future of Maplewood was introducing itself, but would they be ready to embrace it? The sun peeked over the horizon the next morning, casting a warm glow that felt like a promise. Steve arrived at the garage early, the scent of oil and rust mixing with the fresh morning dew. He took a deep breath, feeling both anxious and excited. Today had to be different. Today was the bridge between what was and what could be. As he opened the big garage door, the creaking echoed off the walls, a sound that reminded him of history familiar, yet in need of renewal. He quickly set up a table with blueprints and sketches from his father's old design books, archival photographs of when the factory buzzed with life, and piles of tools just waiting for hands to wield them. One by one, the townsfolk trickled in. Clara was the first to arrive, her spirit infectious as she helped organize the space. Feels different today, doesn't it? She said, glancing at the photos with a thoughtful smile. These stories, they matter. They'll spark the next generation's imagination. Steve nodded, the fire in Clara's eyes urging him onward. What if we invite the local schools? Let them experience this place firsthand. Hands-on learning. Let us show them just how exciting history can be. That's brilliant, Clara exclaimed, a bright grin spreading. Kids getting their hands dirty, mixing fun with education. They'll connect the dots themselves. As they plotted ideas on a makeshift whiteboard, one of Steve's neighbors, Mrs. Johnson, shuffled in, her hands clutching a faded leather purse. "I couldn't help but overhear you last night," she said hesitantly. "My grandkids would love this. They have no idea what a car really is, what it can be." "Then let us bring them in. A mini workshop." Steve's excitement bubbled over. "We can teach them how to change a tire, what makes an engine tick, and maybe throw in some fun races with models." The room buzzed, each suggestion building on the last. Soon, more people joined them, the mechanic down the street, an artist who loved vintage cars, even a high school robotics teacher eager to incorporate technology. They worked collaboratively, illuminating old ideas with fresh creativity. But amidst their energy, doubt lurked in the shadows. Steve glanced at a group standing off to the side, including his rival, whose arms were crossed, skepticism written on his face. "You really think this can work, Steve?" the rival asked, tilting his head like he was unraveling a puzzle. "You're still clinging to a fantasy. People want quick fixes nowadays, not sentimental stories." Steve straightened, thankful for the confrontation. "That might be true, but those quick fixes leave us empty. We have to give them something real, something they can feel. Imagine what we could create together." For a brief moment, his rival hesitated, perhaps considering Steve's words. The laughter, enthusiasm, and the awakening energy around them created an atmosphere his doubts couldn't fully choke out. Suddenly, an unexpected glimmer of hope emerged as Mr. Jenkins entered, holding a box filled with old racing memorabilia. "If you're going to do this, you'll need stories to tell," he grinned. "Let us make sure those kids know the tales behind those rusty old dreams. History deserves a chance to see the light." The room erupted with cheers, excitement bouncing off the walls like engine revs. The energy grew as they began to craft together not just a plan, but a vision that transcended the past, intertwining their roots with dreams of the future. Yet, even as he rode the tide of newfound momentum, Steve couldn't ignore the lurking doubt. Was this enough? Would the community truly embrace this vision? Could they unite not just over nostalgia but also ambitious innovation? As he left the garage that day, the weight of uncertainty clung to him like a shadow. The flicker of hope ignited and began to glow brighter, but questions lingered. If they succeeded, what would it mean for Maplewood? Would they be able to stay united when faced with external pressures, or would those differences begin to pull them apart? Tomorrow was coming fast, and with it the community's strength would be tested. Would they answer the call, or would the dream slip away like a phantom? The sun rolled out high in the sky, casting long shadows as the town gathered around the garage, hearts pounding with anticipation. The energy was electric, a unison of hopeful whispers blending with the clanking of tools. Steve stood at the center, his hands trembling slightly. Today was the day they would show everyone what they had been working towards. Clara took charge, rallying the kids who had arrived with their parents. Children, with wide eyes and smiles stretching from ear to ear, circled around her. "All right, everyone, who's ready to learn about cars?" she shouted, her voice soaring above the hum of excitement. The kids cheered, their enthusiasm infectious. Steve stepped forward, his heart racing. "Let us start with some basics. Who knows what makes a car run?" He watched as several kids raised their hands, eager to share what they had heard from TV shows or games. He felt the warmth of their excitement wrap around him, a soothing balm against his doubts as they dug into the first activity, a hands-on demonstration of how to change a tire. Steve's eyes gleamed when he saw a little girl, no more than 8, bend over the wheel, intent on mimicking his every move. It was moments like these that made the effort worthwhile. It wasn't just about the cars. It was about the connections being forged, the memories being created. But just as the workshop was gaining momentum, unease rippled through the crowd. His rival, still skeptical, approached the group with a furrowed brow. "You think this silly little program will change anything?" he mocked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Kids playing with tools won't fix your factory's past." Steve's stomach sank. The laughter faded briefly as all eyes turned toward his rival, a palpable silence hanging in the air. For a moment he considered retreating, questioning the viability of this dream. But then he remembered the little girl's smile. He straightened, channeling anger into determination. Maybe it won't change everything, he replied firmly. But it can spark curiosity, inspire the next generation to explore, to innovate. We're building more than just skills. We're building a community. The group began to murmur, drawn in by Steve's passion. Clara smiled, nudging the children to join in, encouraging them to share what they loved about the activity. One boy exclaimed, "I want to build my own car someday." A wave of applause erupted, drowning out the doubts. The rallying cries echoed in the sound of hammers against metal and laughter bubbling up from the workshops. Families began to share their own stories, tales of fathers and grandfathers building vehicles, journeys down familiar roads, the legacy of Maplewood flickering to life in their words. But just as Steve felt a surge of hope, the sound of a siren pierced the air. A local news van rolled up, the camera crew ready to capture the action. His heart raced with excitement and a hint of dread. What if they didn't see the value? What if they came for the skepticism rather than the celebration? "Okay, everyone, let's show them who we are," Steve shouted suddenly, rallying the crowd. The tide of excitement washed over him once more. As the kids dashed about, demonstrating their new skills, Steve couldn't help but smile. Yet, deep down he wondered, would the media portray this as a success, or would they focus on the doubts and failures? The battle for the factory's future wasn't just within their community. It was about how they presented themselves to the world. Moments later, a low rumble echoed in the distance, causing heads to turn. Steve squinted into the sun. A group of cars was approaching, dusty and worn, but they looked alive. His heart raced as he realized they were all vintage. What story were they bringing with them? As the crowd thinned and anticipation grew, Steve felt a spark of electricity pulse through the air. Would these vehicles be allies or challengers in their quest for revival? And what secrets might they unfold that could change everything for Maplewood? As the vintage cars rolled into view, the air thickened with excitement and curiosity. The sun glinted off their chipped paint and chrome accents, casting a nostalgic glow that ignited memories in the town's older residents. Stories of their youth and first adventures started to slip from lips, whispered between parents as they pointed out the cars as if they were long-lost friends. "Look at that one!" a woman exclaimed, her voice dripping with nostalgia as she leaned closer to her husband. "That SA-57 Bel Air. We used to take ours to the lake every summer." Steve could see the joy rising like a wave through the crowd. Clara, too, was drawn to the history laying before them, her eyes sparkling as she announced, "Kids, come gather round. I bet these cars have some incredible stories to tell." The children sprinted toward the vintage vehicles, their laughter mingling with the faint sound of the engines still humming beneath the hoods. Steve followed behind, his heart swelling with pride. As he approached, an older man emerged from the nearest car, his leather jacket cracked with age but still stylishly defiant. "Evening, folks," he called, his voice rough yet full of warmth. "You look like you've got a fine gathering here." "Yeah, we're learning about cars," a child shouted, practically bouncing on his toes. The man chuckled, a hearty sound that echoed through the growing assembly. "Well, you've stumbled into the right place then. Each of these beauties has seen the open road and tells tales. But let me warn you, they're not just relics. They carry the spirit of their owners too." Pushing through the onlookers, Steve stepped up, curiosity painted across his face. "Can you tell us more? About the stories?" "Absolutely. This old girl here," he pointed to the Bel Air, "was my first car. I named her Rose. She took me on adventures I'll never forget. Every bruise and scratch comes with a memory, a reckless joyride, a promise of freedom." The crowd shifted, captivated. Everyone hung on his words like they were gold. Clara seized this moment, nudging the kids to ask questions about the cars. They eagerly jumped in, their eyes wide and hopeful, imagining the lives these cars had lived. Just then, a voice piped up from the rear. "What happened to your factory?" The question hung in the air, heavy and curious. Steve's heart dropped. He sensed the apprehension of the crowd, as if they were bracing for news that could shatter the mood. The man smiled knowingly, sensing the tension. Ah, the White Motor Company. A grand name, wasn't it? But they fell hard. Sometimes pride leads to ruin. They spent so much time chasing perfection that they lost sight of the community that built them. His words struck deep. Steve felt every eye on him, the weight of expectation pressing down. He understood now. This was more than just a workshop for kids. It was an opportunity to rekindle that sense of purpose, to ensure they learned not just about cars but about family, community, and resilience. With fire in his belly, Steve stepped forward and spoke from the heart. We might not have the history of the past factories, but we can create a future filled with the joy and passion that drives our community today. We can show those that came before us that it isn't the end, it's a beginning. A wave of applause erupted as hope swirled in the air, but uncertainty lingered in the corners of Steve's mind. Could they truly overcome the shadows of failed legacies? Would the vintage cars inspire them to rise again? Just then, a flicker of movement caught his attention on the road beyond. A sleek, modern electric car zipped into the scene, almost as though it were floating. The crowd turned once more, eyes widening in surprise, and whispered whispers of admiration. Steve's pulse quickened. What could this new arrival mean? Was it a sign of progress or a reminder of just how far they had to go? The sleek electric car rolled to a stop, its shimmering surface reflecting the sunlight. It was a stark contrast to the vintage vehicles surrounding it, a beacon of modern technology. Clara, her excitement palpable, tugged at Steve's sleeve. What do you think it means? Is it a new beginning? Steve couldn't shake the feeling of unease, a tight knot of uncertainty in his stomach. It wasn't just about the shiny car. It was about what it represented. The whispers of admiration crackled through the crowd, but he felt a pang of nostalgia for the past, an era where the rumbling engines of gas guzzlers created the soundtrack of summers long gone. The older man stepped forward again, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Ah, the new generation, he said, gesturing toward the electric car. While these beauties were made for adventure, the future lies in innovation. But remember, every story deserves a listener. As if on cue, a child tugged at the man's leather jacket, eyes wide with curiosity. What's it like to drive a car like that? Is it fun? The man paused, chuckling softly. They say technology makes things easier. But fun? Well, that's a little different. Fun is the smell of gasoline and the wind in your hair. That feeling of freedom on the open road. Steve could see the child's face falter a bit. The thrill of the electric car was evident, but the spirit of nostalgia hung thick in the air. Maybe, Steve interjected, searching for a bridge between old and new. What if we combine both? A place where we honor the past while embracing the future? Where kids can learn the history of these vintage cars alongside the tech in today's vehicles. A ripple of chatter ignited in the crowd, a mix of excitement and skepticism. Could they really build a community that harmonized history and innovation? Steve noticed Clara's eyes sparkling with the possibility, and it pushed him to speak with more passion. That's the magic of it. We need to inspire imagination, get kids hands-on with both the past and future. A place where they can tinker with engines, learn programming, even race go-karts powered by the same principles as these beauties. The older man nodded approvingly, smiling as the crowd began to sway, the energy rising around them. You've got the right idea. Kids deserve to know they're part of something bigger. They can build the next chapter in automotive history. As the excitement spread, Steve felt the weight of uncertainty lift just a bit. Perhaps this was not only about automobiles but about kindling the flames of hope and ambition in the next generation. Let us rally together, Steve urged, looking around at the sea of encouraging faces. We might not have a factory anymore, but we can definitely have a workshop, a community space. Who's with me? Hands shot up around him. Laughter and cheers filled the air, echoing off the vintage cars. But amid the enthusiasm, a shadow crossed Steve's mind. He sensed a swell of complications ahead: financials, logistics, potential pitfalls. And right as the elation peaked, he locked eyes with the man who first spoke. His knowing smile quickly faded. What if we build this space, but the town isn't behind us? What if the community doesn't share the same vision? His words hung like a cloud, threatening to rain on the day's parade. Steve felt a chill. They were standing on the brink of a new dream but needed everyone's faith to see it through. As the crowd began brainstorming ideas, he felt both exhilaration and apprehension intertwine within him. Clara leaned in closer, her voice barely above a whisper. But isn't that what makes it worth pursuing? The chance to build something real, even when the future feels uncertain. A knot formed in Steve's throat. She was right. All they needed was the courage to take that first step. But a distant sound disrupted his thoughts. The smooth hum of the electric car started once more, a reminder that change was already on its way. As the sleek vehicle prepared to leave, a decision loomed. Would they follow the new path ahead, or cling to the remnants of what once was? The crowd turned to watch the departure, eyes marked with awe and uncertainty, emotions tangled, begging for resolution. What would they choose? What path would Steve and the community carve out amidst the swirling uncertainty? A moment hung heavy in the air, the shimmering electric car pulling away. Steve's heart raced, caught in a mix of hope and fear. The crowd's energy buzzed yet seemed fragile. One gust of uncertainty could tear it apart. Clara squeezed his hand, grounding him amid the whirlwind of thoughts. "Do you think they'll really support us?" she asked, her eyes searching his face for reassurance. I hope so," he replied, his voice wavering. "But it's more than just hope. We need a plan, a way to show them that this space matters." He turned back to the crowd, now a swirling sea of faces with ideas blooming like wildflowers. But the doubt lingered in his mind like an uninvited guest. Would they really come together as a community, or would pockets of skepticism appear, tearing at their dreams? The older man stepped closer, a flicker of concern in his gaze. "You're onto something, Steve. But it takes a village, and not everyone may share your vision. You need to make them see." Steve took a deep breath and nodded, heart pounding as he thought about his next words. "Let us schedule a town hall meeting. We can show them what this community space will look like. We can paint a picture of the future, a future that honors our past." Excitement rippled through the gathering. Clara's eyes sparkled, her enthusiasm sparking a chain reaction. "Yeah. We can set up demonstrations, have a history exhibit. Let people bring their old cars to display and share stories." Laughter erupted, and it was contagious. Steve felt a flicker of hope light up within him. Maybe they could do this. Maybe old and new could unite for something greater than themselves. As they began making plans, the sun lowered in the sky, casting golden rays over the vintage cars, making them look almost magical. Steve felt a warmth wash over him. This place was special. It wasn't just about metal and engines, but the memories and dreams they represented. But then the older man spoke again, his voice urgent yet gentle. "Don't forget the logistics. It takes more than dreams to build a workshop. You'll need funds, licenses. You need to connect with the town council." Steve nodded. "You're right. We can start small fundraising events, maybe a crowdfund?" But doubt crept back into his heart. He looked around at the faces of those who rallied around him. What if they got their hopes up only to be met with obstacles? "Just be prepared for the worst," the older man added, his tone almost stern. "When you aim high, there's always the chance of falling." That phrase echoed in Steve's head as he soaked in the camaraderie, the collective energy pulsing like an engine about to roar to life. What if this was the moment they'd look back on as their springboard? "Let us gather on Friday," he said, trying to quell the war within him. "We'll work out our strategy, get ideas flowing." The crowd cheered again, rallying once more around the vision Steve was starting to believe in. Clara laughed, her joy contagious, and the tension in his chest eased slightly. Maybe, just maybe, they could face the doubt together. As they dispersed, Steve felt a spark of determination. They had something powerful, a spark of creativity uniting their dreams. But as the crowd trickled away, he heard a quiet voice he hadn't noticed before. "What if you try but it all falls apart?" Steve turned to see a man standing alone, arms crossed, Skepticism etched on his face. What if you push this forward and it flops? There's already so much divided in this town. Steve's heart sank. He looked around and saw a few others hanging back, their expressions mirroring uncertainty. Would the growing hope become a mirage, vanishing when challenged by doubt? As darkness began to creep in, Steve felt the weight of their eyes on him. Expectation mixed with fear. Were they ready for the fight ahead? Or would the shadows of discontent knock them down before they had the chance to shine? The night deepened, shrouding them in mystery. Steve had to ask himself, how far was he willing to go to protect this newfound dream? The sun had completely sunk below the horizon, leaving only a twilight glow as Steve gathered his thoughts. The weight of uncertainty clung to him, heavier than the palpable excitement from just moments ago. Clara stood beside him, her presence a reminder of the support that surrounded them. He turned to her, searching for confidence in the depths of her eyes. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, squeezing his hand. "Just thinking, what if we fail?" The words felt foreign on his tongue, but they emerged unbidden. Fear buzzed in his mind like an angry hornet. Clara tilted her head, considering him. "But what if we succeed? What if we pull the community together? We can't base our actions on fear." Her words ignited a flicker of warmth within him. "You're right. Fear isn't an option." He straightened, ready to face whatever storm might come. He couldn't let the seed of doubt take root in his mind. The next few days flew by, filled with excitement and frantic planning. The town hall meeting loomed on the horizon, a moment that could either lift them into the sky or bring everything crashing down. They decorated flyers and painted bright signs, each one a promise of what could blossom from this effort. Steve watched as Clara poured herself into preparations, her infectious enthusiasm spreading like wildfire among their friends. One evening, while they were organizing the event schedule, she looked up from her notes. "Do you think anyone from the town council will actually show?" "Some will," he replied. "It's our job to convince them. We need to present our vision clearly. They need to see what this community space can become." As the sun dipped into the horizon on the eve of the meeting, nerves crawled under Steve's skin. Standing alone outside in the dimming light, his heart raced as he recalled the older man's warning. But then Clara appeared, her cheerful presence cutting through the anxious shadows. "Ready for this?" she asked, her bright smile reassuring him. "Yeah, I just keep thinking about what could go wrong," he admitted. "Remember, even if things go sideways, we've still built something here together." She leaned against him, and he could feel the strength in her words. The following day, the town hall overflowed with people. Familiar faces blended with new strangers, a blend of excitement and skepticism danced in the air. Steve took a deep breath as he approached the podium. Clara stood beside him, her unwavering support a lifeline he clung to. "Thanks for coming, everyone." His voice trembled, but he pushed on. "We're here because we believe in our community, in the power of this space to connect us, to bring us together." As he began to outline their vision for the community workshop, the room buzzed with tentative excitement. He spoke passionately, painting vivid pictures of all the projects they could undertake, the history they could celebrate, and the unity they could forge. Clara chimed in, sharing stories she had collected from eager community members' tales of long-lost cars that linked generations. The labor and love poured into every vehicle. Her enthusiasm wrapped around their words like a warm quilt, bringing the audience closer. Yet at the back, an intimidating figure stood out, arms crossed, wearing a skeptical frown. It was the man from before, the one who had questioned Steve. After their presentation, the floor opened for questions. The man approached, his voice cutting through the hopeful atmosphere. "You've got dreams, but dreams don't pay bills. What happens if this community space doesn't get the support you think it will?" Everyone turned to watch Steve. The moment felt electric, all eyes on him, waiting to see how he would respond. He could feel the weight of the doubt pressing in again, but somewhere deep inside, a fire ignited. "We'll adapt, we'll find solutions. This community means something to us all, and together, we'll find a way." He took a breath, grounding himself in the collective heartbeat pulsing around them. The tension hung there for a moment, thick with uncertainty. But within it, Steve sensed a shift, a glimmer of possibility that as the meeting continued, conversations began to bubble, echoing hope and ambition. A few started proposing ideas for fundraising initiatives, others suggesting local businesses that might pitch in. But as the warmth of unity bloomed, the man from the back lingered. He looked unmoved, arms still crossed, uncertainty written on his face. Steve's mind raced. How could he turn this around? As the last question was asked and the meeting began to close, he realized he had one chance left to evoke the power everyone had stirred inside him. Let us show him and everyone what we can do together. He called out, the call to action molding into words. As applause filled the room, Steve glanced at Clara. Would this newfound camaraderie be enough to keep the fabric of their ambitions from fraying? The shadows of uncertainty had not entirely lifted. Moments flashed before his eyes, the risks, the unknowns, the lingering doubt. Would their enthusiasm carry them through? Would they stand together against the rising tide? Outside, the night approached again, and Steve felt both the thrill of hope and the weight of fear dancing alongside him. Would they truly rally the town? What if the very support he so desperately sought began to waver right before him? The following week felt electric as excitement rippled through Maplewood. The town was buzzing with anticipation for the community workshop launch. Steve watched as families came together, friends united, and even those who had once doubted began to find common ground. The sight of children running around, eagerly chattering about the cars and stories they had learned, filled him with warmth. At the garage, Clara had transformed the space into something inviting. Banners hung, handmade by local kids, proudly displaying their dreams and visions of the future. Old pictures of the White Motor Company dotted the walls, marinating the air with nostalgia and hope. But as Friday approached, the knot of anxiety in Steve's stomach twisted tighter. Would anyone show up? Would they see the value in this new vision? Or would it all crumble like the walls of the factory that once stood proud? As the sun dipped low on the launch day, families began to arrive, kids scampering alongside their parents, faces lit with curiosity. Clara stood at the entrance, her voice bright and inviting, welcoming everyone with sincere enthusiasm. The garage felt alive, buzzing with chatter and laughter, hope rising like dough in the warm sunlight. Steve took a deep breath, grounding himself in the moment. This was a turning point, a chance to unite the community. He stepped forward, bringing the crowd's attention to him. Welcome, everyone. Today is about more than cars. It's about our future. His heart raced, but he pushed through the nervousness. Today, we're not just remembering the past. We're building a bridge to what's ahead. As he spoke, he felt encouragement washing over him. The warmth of shared dreams filled the air, enveloping him and the crowd alike. Clara grabbed a few eager kids and began demonstrating some of the skills they would learn, a bond of generations forming as they laughed and experimented, the past intertwining with the present. Yet, from the back, that familiar figure emerged. The man with crossed arms made his way forward, and Steve's heart sank. Would he disrupt the momentum? But instead, the man cleared his throat, his voice steady yet intrigued. I must admit I doubted this would happen. But seeing kids here reminded me of why I fell in love with cars. It's not just metal. It's heart, he continued, a subtle smile creeping onto his face. Maybe there's more to this than I thought. The crowd collectively inhaled, the tension dissolving as tentative applause broke free. Clara grinned widely, her encouragement shining down on Steve like bright sunshine. Friends exchanged glances. Could it be that they were really laying the foundation for something greater? Steve met the man's eye, emboldened by the moment. Exactly. We can honor what's been and what's to come. Together, we can create a legacy that's not just alive in our memories, but woven into our community for generations. And just like that, the energy shifted again. Conversations ignited, ideas blossomed for future events, workshops, fundraising efforts. They began discussing incorporating modern technology and preservation skills, bringing together young and old. A symphony of voices rose around Steve, and he felt the walls of doubt begin to collapse as the sun set, A newfound unity surrounded the garage. This wasn't just about cars any longer. It was about hope, resilience, and a community coming together under a shared dream. Steve paused for a moment, gazing at the people before him. This was his answer. Each face lit with ambition and excitement became part of something bigger. And then it hit him, a shift deeper than he expected. His father's legacy had not slipped away. It was evolving, intertwining with new dreams, coated with the laughter of children, echoing through Maplewood's history and future. Together, Steve called out, his voice cutting through the chatter, "We can host car shows that reflect our journey, restore those beloved vehicles, and create a place where learning meets nostalgia. A legacy for our children." Cheers erupted, hands clapping, and kids squealed with delight. The night felt intoxicating, the possibilities lingering like fireflies in the warm evening as the crowd started to mingle. Joy radiated in laughter and whispers, and Clara slipped beside him, her eyes twinkling. "You did it, Steve. You brought them together." "I didn't do it alone," he replied, the weight of their collective spirit fostering pride in his heart as the stars glittered above. Maplewood was not merely alive. It thrived, pulsing with hope for tomorrow. This was now not just a space for cars, but a space where dreams revved their engines, ready to fly. And as Steve watched the people around him lively, engaged, and hopeful, he couldn't help but smile. He knew they would face challenges, but for now, they had tapped into a golden moment of unity. In that moment, he resolved that he would fight for this newfound connection. Together, they had started to build a bridge toward keeping memories alive while crafting fresh dreams. The journey was far from over. It was just beginning. The hum of engines would once more flood the streets of Maplewood, echoing with laughter and hope. Families would gather, generations would connect, and the legacy of the White Motor Company would rise anew. This was their moment, and every heartbeat of that garage rang with the promise of tomorrow. And so it was that Steve Thompson stood, heart full, watching a community fuel a vision that not only honored the past, but embraced an exciting future ahead. Now, if you loved this story and you want to hear more, you need to subscribe now, because you want to miss what's coming next. Hit that like button and feed the algorithm to help us grow. Every little bit counts. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Comment below your thoughts and feelings about this ending. Your voice matters. Join our journey, because together, we can create magic.